Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to the weekly Saturday program at Iskcon, Niagara. We welcome you heartily, each one of you, for being here. And it's such a beautiful, bright day today. Definitely, spring is there and summer will be around the corner. So hopefully things will open up and restrictions will be removed. And this COVID, with the vaccination and all the different methods that are being employed to diminish its effect, will happen very soon, and we can all meet in person, have wonderful picnics, Vaishnava picnics with kirtans, nice prasadam. So, my name is Sachidanand Das, and I am your servant at Iskcon Niagara Falls. I would like to again welcome each one of you. So today's program is as follows. Right after this short announcement, the servant will perform bhajan and a kirtan, followed by a wonderful presentation entitled Emperor Parikshit, part number 2. So we had part number 1 last week. This is part 2, presented by His Grace Pitambara Prabhu. After the kirtan, the opening kirtan and bhajan, Prabhuji will give class with, I will be formally introducing Prabhuji. And after his class, there will be plenty of opportunity for all of you to, ask questions or clarify something, or just, open up your heart and present, your realizations in regards to this subject matter, or otherwise in Krishna consciousness. So without further ado, and after that, we will have a closing kirtan. After a few more quick announcements about the weekly Vaishnava events, we will have a closing kirtan led by His Grace Venkat Prabhu and Mataji Snigdha Radhika Mataji. So without further ado, I would like to start with a bhajan followed by kirtan, the opening kirtan. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Pankit Prabhu, bhajan please. So today's bhajan is a wonderful composition glorifying the Acharya, O hey Vaishnava Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is addressing the Vaishnava Acharya for mercy. It's from a book called Sharanagati in the section of Bhajan Lalsa. Bhajan Lalsa means the deep desire for bhajan, the desire to seek mercy. O hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, Eidashe Karuna Kori. O hey Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, Eidashe Karuna Kori. Diya pada chaya shodho he amay, tomara charan dhari. O he Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, Eidashe Karuna Kori. O he Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, Eidashe Karuna Kori. Diya pada chaya shodho he amay, tomara charan dhari. Diya pada chaya shodho he amay, tomara charan dhari. O he Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagara, Eidashe Karuna Kori. Hari Bol. Chaye Vega Domi क्षय दोष शोधी क्षय गुण देहो दासे क्षय बेगदमी क्षय दोष शोधी क्षय गुण देहो दासे क्षय सत्संग देहो हे आमारे বসেছি সঙ্গের আসে ছয় সৎসঙ্গ দেহ হে আমারে বসেছি সঙ্গের আসে ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর এই দাসে করুণা করি खाखी आमार नाही पाए बल हरि नाम संकीर्तने एक खाखी आमार नाही पाए बल हरि नाम संकीर्तने तुमी कृपा कोरी श्रद्धा बिंदु दिया देहो कृष्ण नाम ध्याने हो तुमी कृपा कोरी श्रद्धा बिंदु दिया देहो कृष्ण नाम ध्याने ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर दयार सागर ए दासे করুণা করি কৃষ্ণ সে তোমার কৃষ্ণ দিতে পারো তোমার শপথি আছে कृष्ण से तोमार कृष्ण दीते पारो तोमार शक्ति आछे आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली कृष्ण कृष्ण आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली धाई तव पाचे पाचे ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर दयार सागर এই দাসে করুণা করি ও দিয়া পদ ছায়া শোধো হে আমায় তোমার চরণ ধরি ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর এই দাসে করুণা করি दयाल वैष्णव ठाकुर दयाल वैष्णव ठाकुर दयाल वैष्णव ठाकुर हो दयाल वैष्णव ठाकुर ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर दयार सागर এই দাসে করুণা করি দিয়া পদ ছায়া শোধো হে আমায় তোমার চরণ जय प्रभुपादा श्रीला प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा श्रीला प्रभुपादा प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे राधे 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 गोविंद राधे 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 गोविंद राधे गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे 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 गोविंद राधे 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 गोपाल राधे गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे हे गोविंद हे गोपाल बोलो राधे गोविंद राधे गोविंद हे गोविंद हे गोपाल हरि बोल 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 नीताय गौर हरि बोल नीताय गौर हरि बोल जय राधा मदन मोहन राधा मदन मोहन राधे राधे जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे राधे जय राधा गोपीनाथ राधा गोपीनाथ राधे राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय कृष्ण बलराम जय वृंदावन धाम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय वृंदावन धाम जय ललिता विशाखा राधे श्याम जय ललिता विशाखा राधे श्याम जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय प्रभुपाद 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 गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि कलयुग पावन हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय His divine grace AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय श्री श्री मायापुर धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय Samaved Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. So, again, for those who joined just now, on behalf of Iskcon Niagara, I would like to welcome all of you. And as mentioned earlier, today we will be having a very special session, part 2, on Emperor Parikshit by his grace, Pitambara Prabhu. Pitambara Dasa Prabhu is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and he received his first initiation in September of 2017. He started participating in Krishna consciousness in 2010 by regularly attending the Iskcon Scarborough events and programs. He has been rendering various services at Iskcon Scarborough, like temple cleaning, giving Bhagavad Gita classes, book distribution, and distributing prasadam during the Rath Yatra. He has also served Iskcon Toronto in the areas of distributing prasadam in the temple as well as during the Rath Yatra. By profession, he is a chartered accountant, and he lives with his wife Kamla Sakhi Devi Dasi Mata and 2 children. He is actively involved preaching in Krishna consciousness at the Stouffville Krishna community for the last couple years. He is indeed a wonderful, very kind and a humble devotee based on the interactions that we've had many times. And one thing that I really like about Pitambara Dasa Prabhu is the wonderful questions that he asks. In a very humble mood, always ready to learn. We can never know it all. Even Lord Balram, in the form of Anantasesh, he says that I have millions and millions of mouths and millions of ears, and yet I'm not sufficient in understanding or glorifying Krishna. So the attitude of learning, if one has to learn, is from Pitambara Prabhu's demeanor, especially after the end of each session. He always has some very nice questions that can benefit everybody, and also wonderful comments based on his realizations. So at the end of the session, I encourage all of you, to come forward and ask questions or seek clarifications or just speak out your realizations. So without further ado, I would like to call upon His Grace, Pitambara Dasa Prabhuji, to present the second part of Emperor Parikshit. So give me 1 second. I'm going to be muting everybody. That way, just in case by error, if somebody unmutes, it does not disturb the event. And I request Pitambara Prabhu now, if you can, let me see, where are you? I'm trying to find you here. Yes, you are the co-host, so obviously you can unmute yourself, Prabhu. Go ahead and do that.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Sachidanand Prabhu, for the kind words. Thank you so much, Vaishnava Das Prabhu, and the management of Iskcon Niagara Falls for giving me the opportunity to serve you and your congregation. I'm not qualified to speak at all, for sure, at all, on Srimad Bhagavatam or be it at any matter. but will try to speak few words as a little service to my Guru Maharaj and just for my own purification. In the process, if there are any shortfalls, please forgive me. I've tried to present the pastime of Maharaj Parikshit in a story form which is easy to understand. I try to make it interactive as last time, part 1, for the audience to participate in simple questions and answers. Please feel free to unmute and answer these simple questions. And the more we will interact with each other, the more we can deep dive into the nectars of what comes out from this pastime. As you're all aware, there are so many lessons we all can learn from all the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, which are very sweet by itself. Every single pastime is sweet, and we need to take out the pearls diving deep into the ocean. We have to take out the lessons from each pastime as well as each character of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are many takeaways from this pastime as well, which are presented at the end of this presentation. Forgive me, this presentation will be a little longer as we will try to take a deep dive into the nectarian instructions of Srila Sukadeva Goswami, which is most beneficial not only for Maharaj Parikshit, but for all of us to internalize. So it's just not a matter of me speaking and you listening, or even I would be listening to the acharyas. We need to try and internalize the instruction, or pick up the substance, what we call tattvata. We call the spiritual substance. We should try to pick up from every single event and every single pastime of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you again. So Sachidanand Prabhu, I'll try to share my screen and let me know if it's visible and am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji, you're very much, it's audible and your screen is perfectly visible on I believe, on my screen, and I'm sure to the rest of all.
Thank you, Prabhu. So as Sachidanand Prabhu already said, we are on Maharaja Parikshit part 2, part 1 being covered last week, but I'll try to recap just to maintain the continuity and to maintain the flow of the events. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Jnanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and seek their blessings such that the right words are spoken at the right time. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So for the benefit of those who couldn't attend the first time and to maintain the continuity, I would like to recap part 1, but then I would be going very fast. Pardon me, because it's just a recap and we have all covered last week, but we need to maintain the continuity. So once upon a time, we've seen that, Arjuna was narrating to his wife Subhadra the formation of the Chakravyuh when Subhadra fell asleep halfway, and Arjuna was able to narrate how the Chakravyuh was formed. But Subhadra couldn't listen the second half as to how to exit the Chakravyuh because she fell asleep. And that is the lesson we learned last time, that, all the Matajis who are expecting must listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, such that the baby in the womb would come out with the samskaras, which Srila Prabhupada says, no parents are allowed to be parents if they cannot bring the Krishna consciousness child into this world. So then in the battle of Kurukshetra, Abhimanyu assisted his father Arjuna and fought the war bravely, although, he was very young teenage boy. And his opponent formed the Chakravyuh, which he penetrated, but he couldn't exit just because he had the half knowledge. And he fought very bravely, single-handed, until he got tired and when he was mercilessly slain. So Arjuna became very furious and killed Jayadratha and Dronacharya. And then Ashwatthama, being the son of Dronacharya, couldn't tolerate, and he decided to kill all the Pandavas, releasing Brahmastra aimed at the womb of Uttara, who was carrying Parikshit Maharaj at that time. And Krishna, being the well-wisher of Pandavas, immediately entered the womb of Uttara and protected Parikshit Maharaj with his Sudarshan Chakra. So Parikshit Maharaj was able to take darshan of Krishna while in the womb of his mother, and he developed devotional service from very childhood. So in due course of time, Parikshit Maharaj becomes the emperor, and after the Kurukshetra war was over, all the Pandavas retired and Parikshit Maharaj took the throne. He was Mahabhagavata. We have seen, Bhagavata is of two types, Book Bhagavata and Mahabhagavata, devotee Bhagavata. So he was Mahabhagavata and was able to convert others by his transcendental instructions. And he used to consult all the great sages while doing administration. So Parikshit Maharaj gets married to Iravati and begets 4 sons, the eldest son being Maharaja Janmejaya. Now Janmejaya was one of the Rajarsi kings and a famous son of Maharaja Parikshit. And under the guidance of his spiritual master Kripacharya, Maharaja Parikshit performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of Ganges. And this was all happening at the end of Dwapar Yuga, and just about when Kali Yuga was to arrive. So once when Maharaja Parikshit was on his way to conquer the world, he saw, the master of Kali Yuga in the form of Sudra, but disguised as king or a royal order. And he was trying to hurt the legs of a cow and a bull. And he at once, Maharaja Parikshit being a dedicated devotee and a very pious king, he at once wanted to punish this Sudra, who is nothing but Kali personified. So he took up his bow and arrow and he went to conquer the world because he wanted to eradicate the influence of Kali. So once, the personality of religious principles, Dharma, took the form of a bull, and he was standing on one leg only. His 3 legs were already chopped off. And bull met the personality of earth, who is in the form of Bhumi Devi, who appeared to be very grave. She was in tears. And therefore, Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked Bhumi, in the form of a cow, that why is she so pale? And why is she so morose? And why is she appearing to be lamenting? And obviously, Mother Bhumi, in the form of cow, replied that, Lord Krishna has already left planet Earth. He has wound up his leelas, and I'm very much, aggrieved because there are so many miscreants who have been ruling the earth, and I'm therefore, I cannot tolerate the separation from Krishna. At the same time, I cannot take the burden of planet Earth, having been infatuated by this influence of Kali. So Maharaja Parikshit saw this Sudra Kali personified in the dress of king, beating the legs of bull and cow, attacks Kali, and Maharaja Parikshit, says that this is not the one which we expect in this kingdom. You better leave this kingdom. When he was almost ready to chop off Kali's head, Kali requested Maharaja Parikshit to give him permission to reside. And as compassionate as Maharaj Parikshit was, he gave the permission to reside, for the Kali to reside in gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. And with that, Kali was not quite happy. So she asked one more place to live. And Maharaja Parikshit gave him the permission to live where there is gold. And we have seen there are 4 pillars of religion of Dharma. One is truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. And these 4 are respectively destroyed by gambling, intoxication, prostitution, or illicit sex, and animal slaughter or meat eating. And we have also seen that the bull was standing only on one leg, and the leg was truthfulness. And this was at the end of Dwapar Yuga, but now even that leg is chopped off. It seems even the truthfulness is gone, because we are already 5,000 years into Kali Yuga, and the duration of Kali Yuga is about 432,000 years. So 5,000 past, we are still left with 427,000 years, and we can imagine if at the end of 5,000 years we have got this situation, what would be the situation down the road? So during those days, the kings used to go for hunting, and Maharaja Parikshit once went into hunting. He went into deep forest, lost his way, and he was very fatigued and very hungry and thirsty. He was looking for water desperately when he saw the hermitage of Samika Rishi, and he goes there to ask water from Samika Rishi. And the king was, the Samika Rishi was in trance. So naturally his eyes were closed and he couldn't, in fact, the Samika Rishi did not knew his surroundings, whereas Parikshit Maharaj was standing right in front of him asking for water. So Parikshit Maharaj gets angry because he feels that Samika Rishi has insulted him by even not showing any hospitality during those days, which used to be shown. And therefore, he picks up a lifeless snake and garlands Maharaja, the Samika Rishi. And then he was thinking while he was returning to his kingdom that did I do correct or not? And that's the quality of a soul, of a person who is trying to internalize, of a person who is a real devotee, that, the repentance comes in the mind of a good soul as soon as he commits something wrong. And that's our experience daily, that, we sometimes are forcibly carried away by the 3 modes of material nature, but then later on we regret having fallen into the trap of the 3 modes. So when the son of Samika Rishi heard that Maharaja Parikshit, insulted his father, he cursed him to die within 7 days by the bite of Taksak. And thereafter, the boy, the son of Samika Rishi, Sringi, returned to the hermitage, and then he saw that there's a dead snake on his father's shoulder, and he was grief-stricken and he cried loudly. Having heard of him crying, Samika Rishi opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. So Samika Rishi, being very exalted devotee and a sage, he was upset on what his son did out of the immaturity. So he cast aside the dead snake, and then he started scolding his son that, what did you do? Maharaja Parikshit is not worth this curse, and you should not have done what you did. And then Samika Rishi prayed, to the all-providing personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a king was completely free from all sins. So at that time, Maharaja Parikshit, when returning home, he was contemplating, did I do wrong, correct thing, or did I misunderstood Samika Rishi? And he came to the conclusion that no, I did something wrong. And therefore, because he was very clear conscious, he expected that let some calamity come to me right in this life, such that, I finish up this karma, bad karma, what I accumulated. And I wish that all the kingdom, strength, and riches be burned up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. And we saw last time that this is the attitude we all should have, that let the calamities come. In fact, Kunti Maharani's prayer tells the same thing again and again. To request Krishna that Krishna, please give me calamity after calamity, such that I will not be able to forget you even for a single moment. Because Prabhupada says, when we forget Krishna, even for a single moment, the Maya steps in, and then that can be a cause for our fall down. So Maharaja Parikshit came to the right conclusion, and he was repenting on his way to his home. And that is where we ended. So sorry, I went a little fast, but then that was just a recap for us. So Maharaja Parikshit goes to the banks of the Ganges, and this is all described in Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 9, first canto, chapter 19, verses 5 to 12. So Maharaja Parikshit immediately renounced everything, including his kingdom and family. He decided once and for all, and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death, and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the only one who can give liberation, not even the demigods. Demigods are in turn empowered by Krishna, but demigods also do not have any power to give liberation. The only person who can give us liberation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So freeing himself from all kinds of associations and attachments, he accepted the vows of a sage. And this is what we should internalize, that we should try to come out of attachment and free ourselves from the bonds of these three modes of material nature. And from different parts of the universe, there arrived great sages like Atri, Bhrigu, Vasishtha, Parasara, Vishwamitra, Angira, Parsurama, Devala, Bhardwaj, Gautama, Maitreya, Dvaipayana, and the great personality Narada. Look at the exalted devotees, the sages who assembled just because Parikshit Maharaj sat on the banks of the Ganges for achieving the ultimate liberation. So after all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king humbly standing before them with folded hands in a very submissive mood, told them of his decision to fast until death. Now, at this point, I will ask, devotees to unmute and tell me what are the lessons we all can learn from the behavior of Maharaja Parikshit up to this point in time. I repeat my question. Please tell me the takeaways we all can learn from the behavior of Maharaja Parikshit up to this point in time.
You all can unmute yourself one at a time, please, and try to answer Prabhu's question. Thank you.
Krishna devotees, please participate in the questions and answers, which is beneficial for all of us. We need to draw lessons from these sweet pastimes, which will help us down the road.
Prabhuji, can you repeat your question one more time?
I repeat the question. that what lessons we need to learn from this particular behavior of Maharaj Parikshit up to this point in the past time.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vaishnava Prabhu.
Yeah, there are 4 common traits between humans and animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And the defending part of the similarity between animals and humans is very difficult to give up. When you commit an offense, most people, most of the time, do not accept responsibility. And that is a defending attitude. But in Maharaj Parikshit, we feel that he's abandoned this defending idea and he took full responsibility for his actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vaishnava Prabhu.
Hare
One of the
Krishna,
best-
can you hear me?
Sure, Padmakshi Mataji, please go ahead. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so sorry because I was talking and then I didn't hear anything. I was like, probably my Zoom is not working. It's been acting crazy since this morning. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for this wonderful session, which I missed last time, but I did listen to the recording. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was very visual and it was so nice to hear the wonderful pastimes. So, Prabhu, what I'm thinking is, as a king of a kingdom, honestly speaking, I don't think Maharaj Parikshit was on the wrong, right? Because it is the duty. Please correct me if my thinking is wrong, Prabhu. But as I was thinking, like, as a citizen, it was the duty of the Rishi, Samika Rishi, to have paid respects to the king. But this was such a instance where neither the king was at fault nor the Rishi was at fault, because they were each doing their own dharma. So technically, if you see, what the king did on the face of it looks very wrong. But if you go deeper, what he did was not actually wrong, because anyone is supposed to give respect to the king, because the king is to be treated as one of the 7 fathers, and the king is to be treated as almost equal to God, and given the same respects as you worship God. So technically speaking, he was not at fault, but then that slight guilt in him made him accept it, and immediately, without a question of doubt, he renounced everything and went to the Ganges for the welfare of all of us, for the welfare of all human beings. So that is something we really need to know, Prabhu. Like we even if we do wrong, we try to come up with excuses and we deny ourselves, like, we play the blame game and we don't want to take responsibility. But here, technically speaking, Maharaj Parikshit was not on the wrong side, but still he undertook this big austere for the welfare of the entire humanity. And he was, and he did not even, give it a second thought, thinking that it's just a 7-year-old boy who's cursing me, and what can that bring to me? He wasn't even thinking about on those lines. He immediately took onus and responsibility for his actions, and he was ready for atonement. So that is what we all should do, Prabhu. Take up that responsibility for the actions we have committed, and and try to fix it and do our atonements as required. Thank you, Prabhu.
Beautiful, beautiful, Padmakshi Mataji. Thank you so much for the wonderful insight. Beautiful. Any other lessons we learned, Prabhus and Matajis, up to this point in time? Okay, so let me try to summarize.
One more point, I guess, because since nobody mentioned it.
Okay.
One of the other important lessons besides repentance, if you allow me, Pitambara,
Sure, Prabhu. Sure, Prabhu.
is especially when Parikshit Maharaj got to know that he was going to die within 7 days, he renounced everything and he went to seek spiritual advancement. And what the lesson is that he taught us how to die. He teaches us how to leave the body. So that's one point that I feel should be mentioned. So unless you tell me otherwise.
Excellent, excellent, Prabhu. That's wonderful. Uh, yes, that is the very substance of the whole pastime. Wonderfully said, Prabhu. And on the point of Padmakshi Mataji, I remembered, Bhagavad Gita sloka that because being Maharaja Parikshit being the king, Bhagavad Gita sloka that says that yad yad acharati sreshtas tat tad eve tarojana. The exemplary acts which the king or the head of family displays, the common man follows. And that is exactly what Parikshit Maharaj did. What we should do, he is guiding by his own practical example. And the first point I would say here is, the Parikshit Maharaj knew he will die within 7 days, as Sachidanand Prabhu said. Do we know how much we are going to live? That can come to us at any moment, So that's a very, very good point Sachidanand Prabhu mentioned. Since we do not know how much we are going to live, we should immediately start rendering devotional services to the Lord, like chanting, hearing, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc., and should not waste even a single moment of this precious human form of life. And another point is, he renounced everything immediately. We should continue to perform our duties, but without attachment, since attachment to any person or property is the root cause of all miseries. And this is a very big lesson for us, that when we do our duties, okay, we cannot renounce, we cannot just fall into the footsteps of the personalities like Parikshit Maharaj, where, immediately we give up because we have got duties to perform, responsibilities to discharge. But if we discharge those responsibilities or if we perform those duties without attachment, then we would be stepping into the shoes of Parikshit Maharaj, which is what he did. He removed all the attachments and he gave up practically everything, kingdom, relatives, wife, riches, everything. And then he took the vows of a sage. Similarly, we should also strictly observe our do's and don'ts. Our do's and don'ts with the mercy of Srila Prabhupada are so crystal clear, In fact, we take a vow when we take initiation, all those four vows. So do's and don'ts are very clear. All we need to do is just follow those do's and don'ts very strictly if we want upliftment of ourselves, and accept what is favorable to Krishna consciousness and reject what is unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. It is said, anukulyasa sankalpa, pratikulyasa varjanam. So the 6 divisions of surrender are, accepting those things favorable to devotional service, rejecting unfavorable things. The third is the conviction that Krishna will give protection. The fourth is accepting the Lord as one's guardian or master. The fifth is full surrender, full self-surrender. And the sixth is humility. And we can see Parikshit Maharaj's behavior up to this point in time covers all the 6. He accepted what is favorable. He went to the banks of Ganges and wanted to fast until death in search of the absolute truth. He rejected what is unfavorable. He immediately thought that this kingdom, riches, family, wife, relatives, everything is unfavorable. And then he had full conviction that Krishna will give him protection. He also accepted the Lord as his guardian or master by fully self-surrendering, and he showed utmost humility, which we'll see still in the later parts of this pastime. And the last one is he gave himself up to the lotus feet of Krishna. Similarly, we should also surrender ourselves to Krishna, just like Arjuna did in Bhagavad Gita 2.7, which is a turning point of Bhagavad Gita. Karpanya doso pahata swabhava. Arjuna said to Krishna that, "Oh Krishna, now I am a soul surrendered unto you, and please guide me as I am your disciple, and guide me what is best for me." That is exactly what we should try to follow from Parikshit Maharaj's behavior up to this point in time.
Pitambara Prabhu, there's a question here. I don't know what format you prefer. Do you prefer the questions at the end Krishna Smaran Mataji has posted one question. This
Yeah,
is based from last time. So, since you are the speaker, I would like you to give me further direction. Do you want me to read that question out? And if you want to address it now, or would you like to take care of it at the end?
So, Prabhu, definitely we can take as we go. Just tell me, because I wouldn't be monitoring the chat box, but when you say that there is a question, I'll go into the chat box and read. So I'll read what Krishna Smaran Devidasi said.
I
Just a
have the
quick
question. If
question.
you want, I can read it. So that would be quick.
Please read it. Prabhu.
Yes. She's saying that, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for such a detailed class about Parikshit Maharaj. Just a quick question. Since the Rishi was in, meaning Shamik Rishi, since he was in a deep meditation, Maharaj Parikshit could drink the water himself. What need was there to be angry? So why was Parikshit Maharaj angry? He could have just picked up, found the water in the hut and taken it, because the Shringi Rishi was in deep meditation, in samadhi. So would you like to address it now, Prabhu?
Beautiful question, Mataji. Thank you so much for asking such a wonderful question. In fact, such questions encourages the speaker to open up more and throw some more light, but of course, within my limitations, Mataji. So I'll try to explain this. Mataji, there is a wheel of providence. Anything and everything happening, there is a wheel of providence. And these are the pastimes enacted by Lord Krishna himself with deep meanings and deep repercussions. And Krishna being the well-wisher, he would want the things to shape up in a way whereby we all who are totally caught up in these three modes of material nature, in the samsara, dhava, nala, Agni, we are in the midst of that huge fire. And Krishna being our father and well-wisher, he wants us to come out of this miseries and miserable condition of life. By what? By enacting the pastimes to give us lessons what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. I fully agree, Mataji, that Parikshit Maharaj being a king, he could have looked for water himself around the hermitage of Samika Rishi. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam is silent, so therefore I cannot comment whether he was able to find water or whether water was there in the hermitage itself, because generally the sages go to the river Ganges or any nearby source of water. So, but Srimad Bhagavatam is silent, so I wouldn't be commenting on that. In fact, I wouldn't know, because, or if there is, then I haven't read Srimad Bhagavatam in depth, which can give me the clue that yes, there was pot of water within Samika Rishi's hermitage, which Parikshit Maharaj saw and he could drink. But taking the macro picture, Mataji, this is what to happen, and going deep into it, this will lead Parikshit Maharaj, which we'll see down the road, to get angry, and then to get the curse of Shringi. He already got the curse, and then he was to give up, and then he sat on the banks of the Ganges, and then finally he came across Sukadeva Goswami. So all these things was to happen, not only the person Bhagavata in the form of Sukadeva Goswami, but also book Bhagavata in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam was to be presented to the mankind for jivas like you and me, Mataji, to come out of these miseries of material nature, of this material world. And that was to happen, and therefore the Maharaja Parikshit, although could have drank water, if at all he finds, which we don't know, but he did not do it, and rather he got angry and he garlanded a dead snake on the shoulders of Samika Rishi. Does that answer your question, Mataji? You can unmute. Please unmute. I would love the interactions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah, so yes, Prabhu, as per you told me that you're not clear about the situation, what was the situation there, if the water was available and or if it was not available. So yeah, so far I'm satisfied, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Please feel free to ask questions such that we open up more and more to dive deep. And the deeper we go, Prabhus and Matajis, the more pearls we will be able to take out. Beautiful pastimes.
Yes, Prabhu, I agree with you.
Thank you so much. So, Maharaja Parikshit said to the sages, now at this stage, Maharaja Parikshit is just in front of the sages, all the great exalted personalities, sages gathered at the banks of Ganges. And he said to the sages that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has graciously overtaken me, that is Parikshit Maharaj, in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Only out of fear, I will detach myself from the world. And of course, I will ask questions again at the end of this slide, what are the lessons to learn? But there are beautiful, beautiful lessons we can draw from every single event happening and every single word what Maharaja Parikshit is telling to sages at this point in time. So he says for that, oh Brahmanas, oh sages, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way, for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me at once, without any loss of time. He was ready to give up the life. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. In other words, he was now very hungry for the spiritual knowledge. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. A person, the very first stage is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Then the Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, then Anartha Nivritti, Adav Shraddha. So he had that faith and he inquired submissively to all the sages present. And thus the king Maharaja Parikshit sat to fast until death. Now he was so determined that I would rather give up my life than to do or involve in any of the material things, which so far he has been doing. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's actions and in pleasure continuously scattered flowers over the earth and beat the celestial drums. Now, first people to get happy is demigods. We have seen many times, that demigods all present, even say Vasudeva Devaki, in the cell, prison cell of Mathura, when Lord Krishna appears first time, all the demigods present, in the cell. So they recite beautiful prayers because they love anything and everything connected to Krishna and his pastimes. So at this point, I would ask again to unmute and tell me up to this point in time, or at least from this slide, what are the lessons we learned?
There's a very wonderful Pitambara Prabhu, what really has attracted my heart and mind is what you had mentioned about in terms of let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me at once. I only desire you that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu, offering obeisances unto all the Brahmanas. And it's one of my favorite verses, Punascha Bhuyat Bhagavati Anante, Ratihi Prasangaschad Ashreshu. May this bird come, whatever happens, but if I have to be reborn, Ratihi Prasangastad Chatad Ashrayeshu. I develop attachment to the Vaishnavas. Beautiful words that Vyasadeva has. Ratihi. Ratihi means to get attracted or to have the attachment. Prasangastad ashrayeshu, and unto those persons who have taken shelter at your lotus feet. Mahatsu yam upayami srishtim. Maitri astu sarvatra namo vijebhya. I'm going to die. And if I'm going to be born again, then in this srishti, in this material world, when I'm born again, let me be friends unto everyone. Maitri astu, friendship. And sarvatra namo dvijebhya. And I pray that, oh Krishna, I may always be humble and offer my obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas and the Brahmins. So this was the mood of Parikshit Maharaj that I believe you have encapsulated in the last few minutes.
Excellent, Prabhu. Excellent. You lovely said, very nicely said that let me be attached to all the Vaishnavas and let me detach myself from the world. And when he says that only out of fear I will detach, any other lessons before I put up, I say what I learned from it? Okay. So the very first word which caught my attention here is, only out of fear I detach myself. Something we all need to learn, the first lesson which I learned, and please correct me if I'm wrong by unmuting yourself, that we all need some catalyst or solid reason or motivation before we can detach ourselves from these worldly affairs. And what I mean by that is that we are so much engrossed in the activities we perform every day that we don't have time to look back that, wait a minute, what am I doing? Where am I heading to? What is my ultimate purpose in life? Is it, as Vaishnava Das Prabhu says, animals also do eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Is this all what I do? And if I do that, then I'm nothing short of the two-legged animals, So we need some solid reason, should I say, a slap on our cheek for us to realize the urgency. And without any such strong motivation, the second point I concluded is we all would continue living our life casually without any sense of urgency. The third point I drew is we should realize that our clock is ticking and time waits for no one. The fourth one is the earlier we detach ourselves from this illusory Maya, the better it is for our spiritual progress. So many times, many devotees keep on saying that, we have not yet realized the urgency of the matter. The clock is ticking. Krishna says, time I am, and time consumes everything, chara achara. In due course of time, whether it is our bungalow, car, or whether it is our body, our relative, any living or dead matter, time would consume everything. So if we know this ultimate truth, we should at once realize the sense of urgency, which all our acharyas realize. And look at the bhajan which Vaishnava Thakura Satchidananda Prabhu, he's pleading, he's pleading for the shelter of lotus feet of Krishna. This is the mood we should all develop, and we should learn from this particular pastime up to this stage. Thank you for your feedback. So all the sages, welcomed the decision of Maharaja Parikshit to fast until death. And they all decided to stay back until Maharaja Parikshit returns to Supreme Planet. This is the mercy of the sages, the great Mahabhagavatas, the great sages are always compassionate. And Maharaja Parikshit being in this situation to die within 7 days, they became compassionate and they decided that, we will stay back until you return to the Supreme Planet. And Maharaja Parikshit asked them of his immediate duty. Now, again, one more question here before I go further. And this is very important question. Prabhus and Matajis, please tell me, what did Maharaja Parikshit ask to the sages? I'll repeat my question. What did Parikshit Maharaj ask to the sages?
If nobody has, then maybe I can attempt.
Sure, Prabhu, sure.
But let's give a chance to somebody who wants to.
Yes, Prabhu. Let other devotees also participate, because Prabhu, pardon me if this class can go a little longer, but it is for our own benefit to deep dive, and take out the lessons for all of us.
Yes, Prabhu, that's all right.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, Prabhus and Matajis, please unmute, feel free to unmute and tell me what questions did Maharaja Parikshit ask to the sages? Okay, Sachidanand Prabhu, please pick up from here.
Yes, Prabhu, wonderful 2 verses come to my mind from the Bhagavatam itself. Atha prichhami samsiddhim yoginam paramam gurum purushasya eha yat karyam mriyamanasya sarvatha. Meaning, atah prichhami, I'm asking, sab siddhim yoginam, unto all the saints and devotees. Purushasya eha yat karyam. At the time of death, if somebody, what is the perfection for that person? What is that activity that one should do at the time of death? Mriya manasya sarvatha. When the time of death approaches. And then he asks, it's in the same chapter, I believe. Again, another nice verse. Yash shrotavyam atho japyam. What should be heard? Atho japyam. What should be chanted? Yat kartavyam nirvihi prabhoho. What should be the duty? Oh, my saints. Oh, Sukdev Goswami. Smartavyam bhajanyam va. To remember Sri Krishna, to worship Sri Krishna. Bruhi yad na viprayam. Please explain these questions that I have asked. What should be chanted? What should be heard? What is the duty of a dying person?
Beautiful, Prabhu. Beautiful. That's exactly what is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for answering. So Maharaja Parikshit asked them of his immediate duty, and he asked the sages 2 questions. And Prabhu's and Mataji's, these 2 questions forms the basis on which the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is resting. And what are those 2 questions? The first one he asked is to the sages, that what is the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances? So everyone means you and me are included. What is the unalloyed duty? What one should be doing in all the circumstances, not specific, any circumstance, what one should be doing. And the second great question he asked is that, please describe, O sages, specifically for those who are just about to die. And it is his own example. He told sages that I'm cursed to die within 7 days by Brahmana's curse. And that is why I have decided to fast until death. So he was very crystal clear as to his motives, but then he wanted sages to tell them what are the duties of everyone. At the same time, what is the duty of the person specifically who is about to die in 7 days. And these 2 questions form the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. At that very moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth, disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Now, here is the arrival of Sukdev Goswami in this pastime. And he used to travel, over the earth, disinterested. He was wandering like an avaduta. Even he didn't care for his dress or anything. There is no clothes. Because he's not interested. He doesn't have any anarthas the way we all have, because he was bereft of Maya. And we will see that down the road. And he manifested no symptoms of belonging to any social order or the status of life. So the great personality, Sukdev Goswami, was wandering around in Avaduta, as an Avaduta, and he came across Maharaja Parikshit sitting on the banks of Ganges. Now, we all know that, and then Maharaja Parikshit asked the sages these questions in a very humble mood. We all know, Bhagavad Gita 4.34 says, Tadviti pranipatena, pariprasnena sevaya, upidekshanti te jnanam, jnaninas tattvadarshina. So he says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. Why? The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Bhagavad Gita is so clear as to how we should be approaching our spiritual master, what mood we should be to ask questions, and what we should do, like rendering services. And Maharaja Parikshit took a very humble approach and asked the relevant questions to the sages in a very submissive mood. Second one, quality of the questions and the manner in which they are asked reveals the consciousness of the person asking questions. And this is what I keep on saying, that please feel free to unmute, let the class go a little longer, but the questions and answers are the ones which would form the basis for us to something internalize. It's just not a matter of speaking and hearing or reading. We must internalize every lesson we learn from this pastime. The third one is the sages at once realized the humility of Maharaja Parikshit and the urgency of the matter. And they were equally compassionate to his situation. And fourth one I concluded is submissive mood attracts the attention of our spiritual master and encourages him to give all the knowledge he has to the disciple. As much as Parikshit Maharaj was submissive to the sages up to this point in time, sages also wanted to answer him. But by that time, Sukadeva Goswami comes in. So we'll see something about Sukadeva Goswami. This son of Vyasadeva, that Sukadeva Goswami was only 16 years old when he met Parikshit Maharaj. He was just 16 years old. And these are the beautiful description of Sukadeva Goswami. And therefore, I'm trying to, reproduce, because without adulteration. Bhagavatam says, which is 1:19:26-30, says his legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and the other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. His collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked. I already said he was wandering as an avaduta. He didn't care for his surroundings. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Just a young boy of 16 years old, but completely renounced, completely free from the three modes of material nature, and completely surrendered to Lord Krishna. The great sages present there honored him by raising from their seats. So sages immediately stood up as a mark of respect to Sukadeva Goswami, who just arrived on the scene. And Maharaja Parikshit bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Sukadeva Goswami. Now, the purport of Srila Prabhupada, which is beautiful in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 21, verse 25, that is 9.21.25 says, Sukadeva Goswami remained in the womb of his mother for 12 years. And when the father asked the son to come out, the son replied that he would not come out unless he were completely liberated from the influence of Maya. So Sukadeva Goswami didn't want to come out for 12 good years. He remained in the womb of his mother. And Vyasadeva, the father at that time, then assured the child that he would not be influenced by Maya. But the child did not believe. Sukadeva Goswami did not believe his father. Why he did not believe? Because the father was still attached to his wife and children. This is a beautiful, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vyasadeva then went to Dwarka and informed the personality of Godhead about his problem. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at Vyasadeva's request, Krishna himself went to Vyasadeva's cottage, where he assured the child in the womb, that is Parikshit Maharaj, that he would not be influenced by Maya. So Vyasadeva immediately took shelter of Krishna, that here is the situation, and I have got 12-year-old son still in the womb, and please help me. Krishna immediately rushed to Vyasadeva's cottage, and where he assured the child, the Parikshit Maharaj, that in the womb, that he would not be influenced. And that is exactly the assurance which Parikshit Maharaj sought. Thus assured, Parikshit Maharaj, the child came out, but he immediately went away as a Parivrajak. That is why Sukadeva Goswami was wandering around like an avadhuta, without caring about anything around him. He was completely freed from Maya and was completely detached from all the worldly affairs. So Parikshit Maharaj was wandering as an avadhuta, detached completely from his surroundings. So receiving the respect from all, Sukadeva Goswami took his exalted seat. Sukadeva Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods. His presence was gorgeous, and he was respected by all. So sages were about to answer the question to Parikshit Maharaj, but as soon as sages saw Sukadeva Goswami entering, in fact, they became the Srota, because Sukadeva Goswami was such an exalted personality that sages knew that the nectar would flow if they become the Srota. So they immediately surrounded Sukadeva Goswami and became ready to see and to hear what he is about to speak. So Sukadeva Goswami sat perfectly pacified, intelligent, and ready to answer any question without hesitation. The great devotee Maharaja Parikshit approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. And what did he inquire? We have seen the questions already, and Sachidanand Prabhu was kind enough to throw that light to those two verses. He asked, I am begging you, O Sukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj says, I am begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die, which means he is talking of himself. Please let me know, O Sukadeva Goswami, what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Now, look at the humility of Maharaja Parikshit. It's clearly seen, the humility is clearly seen by his demeanor and approach to Sukadeva Goswami. Exactly as 4.34 said, Tadviti Pranipatena. His mood is, in asking questions, is completely submissive. And he's asking politely with folded hands, begging Sukadeva Goswami to answer his two questions. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, my dear King Parikshit, your question is so glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. And Srila Prabhupada reflects on this. The topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer, all the three. Here the speaker is Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the hearer is the sages as well as Parikshit Maharaj, and the inquirer is Parikshit Maharaj himself. So all the topics of Lord Krishna are very auspicious to purify everyone. The process of going back home, Srila Prabhupada says, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord and his name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami continues that those persons who are materially engrossed, and this is a lesson for all of us, Prabhus and Mataji, please be attentive. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society. So Prabhupada says, that do not be engrossed in these material things every day morning. Instead of, opening the newspaper or TV channel to listen to the news, better you chant Hare Krishna, or better you read Srimad Bhagavatam, because after all these material things happening in or around you is temporary, and it will take you away from the absolute truth. So Sukadeva Goswami advises the same thing, that one should be completely knowing the ultimate truth and keep away from the material matters. Srila Prabhupada again reflects on what Sukadeva Goswami just said, and he says that householders are of two types. Can anybody tell me quickly what are the two types of householders Prabhupada is speaking about? My question is, Prabhupada is about to say, in the purport, there are two types of householders. What are the two types? Can anybody tell me, please?
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Grihastha?
Yes,
Grihamedi.
Yes, Vaishnavadas Prabhu. You nailed it. Excellent, Prabhu. So Prabhupada says householders are of two types. One is Grihastha and the other is Grihamedi. Now, what is the basic distinction? I haven't elaborated, but just one liner. The Grihasthas try to realize the ultimate truth, whereas the Grihamedis, however, are envious of others. And that is where, unfortunately, at least I belong to Grihamedis. We become envious. We are not devoid up to this point in time of all our anarthas, Prabhus and Matajis. Specifically, let me speak of myself. All the anarthas, we are still not there yet. Although we are trying to know a little bit here and there from our sastras, and our Guru Maharaj is kind enough to impart that knowledge. But we are not there yet. We are sadhana bhaktas. We are still on our way to understand the spiritual concepts. We are still on our way to implement it. And as I said, we should internalize the things which we learn from each pastime. And that by internalizing these pastimes and the lessons, we will be able to come to that spiritual platform where we will start to inquire about absolute truth. That is the stage when we will be called Grihasthas. Until that point in time, we are Grihamedis. And we all know Srimad Bhagavatam, 1.1.3, that is first canto, first chapter, third verse, says, Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam, sukamukhadamrut dravya sanyutam, pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam, muho rasika bhuvi bhuvika. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. And we know, it has been described many a time, that Srimad Bhagavatam is a ripened fruit of all the Vedic literatures and is a spotless Amala Purana. It purifies the speaker as well as the listener. And that's exactly what we are doing. We are trying to speak a little bit and we are trying to listen, which is nothing but a purificatory process, because all we are listening is from Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada says that we should try to be the ideal Grihasthas and not Grihamedis, who never inquire about the absolute truth and live an animalistic life, just like sleeping, matting, defending, etc. So we should try to be Grihasthas according to Srila Prabhupada. And until the time we inquire about absolute truth, we are called two-legged animals. That means we haven't realized the urgency of the matter.
On this, can I just add quickly on the Grihamedi and Grihastha?
Prabhu, please feel free anytime, please.
Just on those two Sanskrit words,
Yes, Prabhu.
besides the other definitions, Grihamedi, Med means one's intelligence. And Griha means, here it means sense gratification in the house, situated in the house. And Med means one who is intelligence or mati or medha is absorbed in how I can, like Vaishnava Prabhu had mentioned, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, ahar, nidra, bhai, maithunam chat, these four. So that is Griha Med, whose intelligence or heart or mind is engrossed in sense gratification. And grihastha, ashram, just if you analyze the Sanskrit word, gruha again means house. Astu means where there is the vas of Krishna. You know, when we enter a new home, we have this vastu. What does that mean? Vastu means, oh Krishna, your dwelling. You come into the house. Especially when we buy a new house, we do the vastu. So vas, astu means there is Krishna. So the word griyastu means a householder life, keeping Krishna at the center. And that griya astu means it is Krishna, this is your home. This griha, this home, astu, it is yours. So that is the major difference along with the other definitions that are given. And obviously somebody who is full of sense gratification is very envious by nature. So we even though we may have enough to eat, enough to survive, enough luxuries, we are never satisfied. And we are always envious of the next person or the neighbor or the people around us. So that's why Prabhupada mentions that they are envious by nature because of their consciousness. Thank you.
Excellent, Prabhu. Excellent. I love when you deep dive. So great. And that is why, Prabhu, we keep altar at our home. That this is Krishna's home. As soon as we say this is my home, my family, that is the beginning of the end, that's the beginning of downfall. And that is why we keep altar at our home, that we should try to become grihasthas and render devotional service to Krishna rather than becoming grahanidhis. Thank you, Prabhu. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami continues. Now these are the beautiful narration by Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Let's try to go into depth. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family members. Most of us fall into this category. During the day, we are so busy in making money or maintaining our family, which is so must. Yes, but we should be doing that without attachment. And then at night, our night passes either in sleeping or in sex indulgence. Majority of the people who are not Krishna consciousness are in this category. In fact, this is the anartha we should try to remove. We should try to keep ourselves attached to Krishna and detached from the material activities. And Srila Prabhupada beautifully explains, elaborates on what Srila Sukadeva Goswami just now said, that materialistic men are called karmis. And that's what makes me say we are all, in fact, I should speak for myself, for sure in this category, because anarthas have not gone up. Or Prabhupada says materialistic men are called karmis, or fruity laborers whose life is wasted in sleeping and sex indulgence at night and earning money in the day and spending the time for family maintenance. The karmis are more or less devoid of Atma Tattva knowledge, the self, the knowledge about self. They are devoid because the Athato Brahma Jigyasa is missing, Prabhus and Matajis. They never inquire about the absolute truth, and therefore the Atma Tattva knowledge is missing, according to Srila Prabhupada. Further, Prabhupada explains, the jnanis, yogis, and devotees are strictly prohibited from sex indulgence. The human life is not meant for hard labor, for economic development, nor is it meant for sex indulgence like that of the dogs and hogs. It is specially meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So on the last line, it says it is specifically meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So here is another window for me to ask every one of you. Please unmute and answer me. What do Prabhupada mean, or what are the problems of material life which we are living at present? What are the problems of material life which we are living at present? If somebody can expound on the last line of Srila Prabhupada, it is specifically meant for making a solution to the problems of material life. And the natural question arises, what are the problems of this material life? Okay. So, Sachidanand Prabhu or Vaishnava Das Prabhu, you want to give an attempt?
Vaishnadas Prabhu, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Well, Prabhupada always mentioned that the universities are producing sophisticated animals, producing a godless society. And one of the problems of life I would propose is that majority of people are godless. And Prabhupada was trying to reconnect them to God through the Iskcon, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that's my little note for this. Thank you.
Very nicely said, Prabhu. Yes, that is what Prabhupada keeps on mentioning, godless society, because he attacks the root of the problem. But I want further deep down, what is the main problem of this material life?
So that would be like Govinda says, E dhana yauvana putra parijana itheki ache parititi re. Basically what Srila Prabhupada says that becoming a karmi, simply involving in eating, sleeping, mating, making money during the day, just like Govinda says in that bhajan, Bhajahure Mana, he's saying, E dina yamini, vifale sevinu kripana durjana chapala sukhalava lagire. Just for material happiness, day and night, the man is laboring, for material happiness. So that is the problem of this, of all of us, basically. Being karmis, and just indulging, in earning money, sleeping, wasting time, fruitive work attached to the results, etc. And we are devoid of the real science of self-realization, or known as Atma Tattva. So that's what Srila Prabhupada, I believe you had mentioned that in your...
Yes, Prabhu. That's also, you made it down. Yes, that is because we are completely attracted by the glamours of this material world. We keep on engaging into this animalistic, eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. And we are devoid of Atma Tattva. Very well said, Prabhu. But I would
Hare
go
Krishna,
further
Prabhu.
deep.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can I attempt, Prabhu?
Oh, Prabhu, please, welcome Radha Govinda Prabhu. Please.
Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi.
Hari bol, Prabhu, Hari bol. Prabhu, that is what I wanted to come to the deep meaning, Prabhu. You want to elaborate or?
No, go ahead, Prabhu. That's the
Hari bol,
basic.
Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Just I wanted, that is the perfect answer, but a deep rooted. Yes, whatever is said by Vaishnava Das Prabhu and Satyananda Prabhu, it is very true. Yes, it is our daily experience. But Prabhupada means by saying that the problems of material life is what I call BODD, birth, old age, disease, and death. And what Radhavendra Prabhu said, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyati. Beautifully said. And that is the main problem. If we cannot find a solution to come out of this basic problem of repeated birth and death, punarati jananam, punarati maranam, jatre sayanam. If we cannot come out of this, what is the value of life? That means we haven't realized the urgency yet. And Prabhupada says specifically meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries thereof. So the 3 points I have concluded here is that first is the human form of life is very precious and is attained after rotating in 8.4 million species. The second one I concluded is even the animals indulging in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They indulge. So if humans do the same, they are called two-legged animals. And the third point I concluded is human life is meant for finding a solution to the repeated cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death, as Radha Govinda Prabhu just now mentioned. That's what Srila Prabhupada meant. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for answering. So we are continuing with the Srila Sukadeva Goswami's answers. Persons, Sukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, persons devoid of Atma Tattva, just now Sachidananda Prabhu was mentioning Atma Tattva, the self. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. And this is the case with all of us, we think that, oh, you know what, if I come into trouble, my family, my wife, my children, the society, my country will come to my rescue. But that is temporary. Nobody can save you from obtaining, the Atma Tattva. We need to be inquiring about the Atma Tattva. Who am I? What is my purpose in life? What is my relations with Krishna? What is the soul? What is the super soul? These are all spiritual knowledge, all called Atma Tattva. Srila Prabhupada further says, our friends, relatives, and so-called wives and children are not only fallible, but also bewildered by the outward glamour of material existence. As such, they cannot save us, as I just now said. We depend on them, but they cannot save us, impossible. Still, we think that we are safe within the orbit of family, society, or country. Srila Prabhupada further describes, Sukadeva Goswami is pointing out the duty of the human being after showing the actual position of bewildered human activities. Persons who are devoid of the knowledge of Atma Tattva are misguided, but those who are devotees of the Lord and have perfect realization of transcendental knowledge are not bewildered. So Prabhupada is trying to save each and every one of us by urging us with folded hands that please, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, please inquire about the absolute truth. Please try to know about Atma Tattva. And if you do not know the Atma Tattva, you are for sure misguided and therefore cannot, and therefore you are bewildered, because the three modes of material nature are meant to bewilder all of us. Sukadeva Goswami further continues to answer Parikshit Maharaj, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. In other words, Sukadeva Goswami says, that we must take the shelter of the super soul, who is ultimately the controller, enjoyer, and proprietor. As 2.7 says, Karpanya doso pahata svabhava. Let's take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So Sukadeva Goswami further says, the highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, that is Jnana Yoga, by practice of mystic powers, that is yogis or Jnana Yoga, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, which is Karma Yoga, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. So Goswami further says, at the end of the Dwapar Yuga, I studied Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dvaipayana Vyasadeva. So Sukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj that I learned this Srimad Bhagavatam from my father, Vyasadeva. Sukadeva Goswami further says, one who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord. Constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is a doubtless and fearless way of success for all. This is nectar from Srila Sukadeva Goswami. What is he trying to say? Give your full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's exactly Prabhupada and Mataji we are doing right now. We are trying to be attentive and we are trying to know Srimad Bhagavatam as spoken from the lotus mouth of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. And what does he say? Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith. Unflinching, not wavering, unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord. And constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is a doubtless fearless way of success for all. And just 500 years before, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the same thing. Chare dekho, tare kaho, Krishna upadesh, he said that please chant this holy name of the Lord. Irrespective of caste, creed, gender, religious, he gave this nama, Harinama to every single person, just because he was compassionate for all the living beings to get liberated. The Goswami further continues, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Look at the words. What is the point in prolonging life or dragging our feet, so-called, in this material life? What is the point? And that's what Sukadeva Goswami says. There is no point in wasting. Wasting is the word he's using in a prolonged life which doesn't give you any experience. It's better to have full consciousness, because that gives one a start in the searching after his supreme interest. Just a start, because as I said, we are not there yet, but at least we are trying to inquire that what is truth. It will give us a start in searching after the supreme truth. He further says, the saintly king Khatwanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. Now, for want of time, I wouldn't go into the sweet pastime of Khatwanga, but he realized that he has got only one moment to live. And as I said, Yad Acharati Sreshta Tattab Evetaro Jana. The supreme people would all, of course, demonstrate by their exemplary behavior what we should all do. And Maharaja Khatwanga did the same thing, that he once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety of Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami further says, Maharaja Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death. But one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. And this is one of the best lesson we should learn, that at the time of death, if we are able to remember Krishna, as Krishna also said in Bhagavad Gita, that one who remembers at the time of death, anta kalecha mame mam swaranaveta kalevram. So one who remembers at the time of death me would for sure attain me and my abode. So one must cut off all the ties or the attachment, as Maharaja Parikshit did. And that is what made me say earlier that attachment is the root cause of all our miseries. I repeat, attachment is the root cause of all our miseries. And if we know that, if we have got that jnana, let us implement vijnana. And let us implement by what? By detaching ourselves from the material things. Although doing perfectly, although we can continue to do our duties, but inside we should be detached from any and all of the material activities. Now, Sukadeva Goswami goes ahead to give final instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. Sukadeva Goswami narrated the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaja Parikshit, including different incarnations of the Supreme Lord, like Matsya Avatar, Kurma Avatar, Varaha Avatar, Narsimha Avatar, Vamana Avatar, Parsurama Avatar, Lord Rama Avatar, Lord Balarama Avatar, and the transcendental appearance of Lord Krishna. So he described the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and this is said in the 12th canto, 5th chapter, 10th verse. Srila Sukadeva Goswami said to Parikshit Maharaj, the snake bird Taksaka, sent by the curse of the Brahmana, will not burn your true self. The agents of death will never burn such a master of the self as you, for you have already conquered all dangers on your path back to Godhead. So, he's trying to tell Parikshit Maharaj that Taksaka cannot touch your soul. Nainam Chindrati, we know the soul is eternal. Soul cannot be cut by weapons. Soul cannot be moistened by water. Soul cannot be withered by wind. So that is exactly what Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami is trying to tell Parikshit Maharaj, that these things, the taksaka or his poison, cannot burn your true self, because you are the eternal soul, and the agents of death will never ever be able to burn such a master as the self as you. So he further said, beloved King Parikshit, I have narrated to you the topics you originally inquired about, the pastimes of Lord Hari, the supreme soul of the universe. Now, what more do you wish to hear? So, just like in Bhagavad Gita at the end, after 1866 and all, Krishna said that Arjuna, I have told you what is most beneficial for you. Have you understood it? Do you still want further clarification? And that is where Krishna said, Karishya vachanam tava. Nasto moha, his all illusion is gone, and he accepted the full surrender. I will do exactly what you tell me. And same thing in this pastime, Sri Sukadeva Goswami is asking Parikshit Maharaj that you inquired for me to describe Lord Hari's pastimes. Now I have described everything of Sri Hari's pastime. Anything more do you wish to hear? And Parikshit Maharaj responds. So this thing was simultaneously getting narrated by Suta Goswami to Saunakadi Rishi, because Suta Goswami was present when Sukadeva Goswami was narrating to Parikshit Maharaj, but Suta Goswami was in the audience, in the sages, and he heard all these things, and therefore in Naimisharanya, all the Saunakadi Rishi approaches Suta Goswami that please tell us this pastime. And Suta Goswami said to them that after hearing all from Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaja Parikshit humbly approached his lotus feet. Bowing his head down upon the sage's feet, the king folded his hands and spoke as follows. Maharaja Parikshit said, I have now achieved the purpose of my life, because a great and merciful soul like you has shown such kindness to me. I have heard from you, O Sukadeva Goswami, this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the perfect summary of all the Puranas and which perfectly describes the Supreme Lord, Uttama Sloka. Lord Krishna is also known as Uttama Sloka, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He further says, my Lord, I now have no fear of Taksaka or any other living being, or even of repeated deaths, because I have absorbed myself in that purely spiritual absolute truth, which you have revealed and which destroys all fear. So here, Sukadeva Goswami now prepares to leave. So Parikshit Maharaj further says, O Brahmana, please give me permission to resign my speech. Who is saying who? Sukadeva Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj is telling to Sukadeva Goswami, O Brahmana, please give me permission to resign my speech and the functions of all my senses unto Lord Adoksaja, another word of Lord Krishna. Allow me to absorb my mind, purified of lusty desires, within him, that is Krishna, and to thus give up my life. He further says to Sukadeva Goswami, you have revealed to me that which is most auspicious, the supreme personal feature of the Lord. I am now fixed in knowledge and self-realization, and my ignorance has been eradicated. As requested, Sukadeva Goswami gave his permission to King Parikshit Maharaj. Then, after being worshipped by the king and all the sages present, Sukadeva Goswami departed from that place. Now, it is said here that, the snake bird Taksaka cannot enter a place where Sukadeva Goswami is situated or located. To allow Taksaka to fulfill the will of providence, Sukadeva Goswami had to leave the place after enlightening Maharaja Parikshit. Maharaja Parikshit then meditated on Supreme Personality of Godhead and went into trance. So Maharaja Parikshit then sat down on the bank of the Ganges. He settled his mind within his spiritual self by pure intelligence and proceeded to meditate upon the supreme absolute truth. His life air ceased to move, and he became as stationary as a tree. So at this point in time, Maharaja Parikshit attained the perfect meditation. His life air ceased to move while his body remained stationary without any consciousness. So exactly at this point in time, when Maharaja Parikshit attained the trance, the samadhi, his life air ceased to move. That means what was left was only his body, which became as stationary as tree. In other words, his soul already departed. All learned Brahmanas, the snakebird Taksaka, the Sutta Goswami continued, the snakebird Taksaka, who had been sent by the angry son of a Brahmana, was going toward the king to kill him when he saw Kashyapa Muni on the path. So Taksaka was on his way, but he saw Kashyapa Muni on the path. And it is said that, Taksaka arrived to complete his mission, but saw Kashyapa Muni on his way. And Kashyapa Muni could counteract the poison of Taksaka and demonstrated this power earlier by bringing a palm tree back to life after Taksaka had burned into ashes by biting it with his fangs. Now, there was a pastime where, Taksaka similarly bite the palm tree and burn the palm tree into ashes. But Kashyapa Muni saw this, and Kashyapa Muni is capable enough to counteract the poison of Taksaka, and he revived the palm tree. So Taksaka approached Maharaja Parikshit. So that thing Taksaka knew. So Taksaka flattered Kashyapa Muni by presenting him with valuable offerings and thereby stopped the sage. Why? Because he knew that Kashyapa Muni is capable of counteracting his poison. He knew that he was expert in counteracting poison from protecting Maharaja Parikshit. Then the snake bird, having withheld Kashyapa Muni on his way, he could assume any form he wished. The snake bird was capable of assuming any form he wished. He disguised himself as a Brahmana and approached the king and bite him. And that was the will of the providence. So while living beings all over the universe looked on, the body of Maharaja Parikshit was immediately burned to ashes by the fire of the snake's poison. And this was inevitable thing which was to happen. So having kept Kashyapa Muni away, Taksaka approached Maharaja Parikshit in the form of a Brahman and bite his lifeless body. As I said earlier, his soul already departed because the life air ceased to move, Srimad Bhagavatam says. So he bite his lifeless body, which was just lying there as stationary as a tree, to burn it to ashes. And this way, Maharaja Parikshit achieved liberation. There was a terrible cry of lamentation in all directions, on the earth and in the heavens. The demigod showered flowers and spoke words of praise. Maharaja Parikshit thus achieved liberation. So Maharaja Janmejaya performs the sacrifice. Hearing that his father, Parikshit Maharaj, had been fatally beaten by the snake bird, Maharaja Janmejaya, who is the eldest son of the four of Parikshit Maharaj, became extremely angry. He had Brahmanas perform a mighty sacrifice in which he offered all the snakes in the world into the sacrificial fire. So he performed a snake sacrifice where all the snakes in the world are getting attracted by the oblations, and that is into the sacrificial fire. When Taksaka saw even the most powerful serpents being burned in the blazing fire of that snake sacrifice, he was overwhelmed with fear and approached Lord Indra for shelter. So Taksaka saw that all the snakes are going into the blazing fire, and therefore he took shelter of Lord Indra to save himself. When King Janmejaya did not see Taksaka entering his sacrificial fire, he said to the Brahmanas, "Why is not Taksaka, the lowest of all serpents, burning in this fire?" So Maharaj Janmejaya was wondering that despite these oblations, despite these mantras being chanted, why all the serpents are going except Taksaka. And he inquired from the Brahmanas who were chanting mantras. The Brahmanas replied that Taksaka is being protected by Indra, who is holding him back from the fire. So Maharaja Janmejaya at that time immediately asked Brahmanas to make Taksaka fall into the fire along with his protector Indra. So Janmejaya now is desirous that let us intensify this chanting of mantra and giving oblations such that Taksaka comes along with his protector Indra into this blazing fire. And the priest for sure did what Maharaja Janmejaya asked him to do, then chanted this mantra for offering Taksaka together with Indra as an oblation into the sacrificial fire. And Lord Indra, along with his airplane and Taksaka, was suddenly thrown from his position by these insulting words of the Brahmanas. He became very disturbed. So when Lord Indra saw that, he is getting pulled along with his Taksaka and his airplane into this blazing fire, he became very disturbed. So Brahaspati, Brahaspati is the guru, the spiritual master of the demigods. The Brahaspati, the son of Angira Muni, intervened at that time because he is the well-wisher and told King Janmejaya to stop this sacrificial performance. And he said, Taksak, who is the king of snakes, cannot meet death as he has drunk the nectar of the immortal demigods. And that's exactly what Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, chapter 6, verse 20 to 28 is describing. That this king of the snakes, Taksaka, cannot meet death because he drank the nectar of the immortal gods. So Maharaja Janmejaya, having heard Brahaspati requesting him, desisted from performing the snake sacrifice and worshipped Brahaspati, the most eloquent of sages. So this is where we end our part 2. I just little bit extended to cover Janmejaya pastime as well, such that we know what happened to Taksaka and how he was saved. We have got takeaways, Prabhus and Matajis. Sachidanand Prabhu, Vaishnava Prabhu, do I have the permission to ask audience to tell me the takeaways or the learnings from this particular pastime, part 1 and 2?
Sure, Prabhuji, go ahead. Whoever wants to stay, they will stay. And those who like the nectar, they will continue. So
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So, Prabhus and Matajis, please unmute yourself and try to meditate upon what pastime was just narrated, whether part 1 or part 2. And what are the takeaways from this beautiful, beautiful pastime of Maharaja Parikshit. And as I said earlier, Prabhus and Matajis, the more we try to meditate upon the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, the more we will be able to get the pearls out of the deep dive of ocean. The more we can learn the lessons from not only from each pastime, but each character and each event in Srimad Bhagavatam. And that will purify us, because in that process, we will try to internalize what is meant for me. We say normally, what is in it for me? So I am at that stage where we should try to know what are the lessons we all can learn from any and every event what I described, and how we can internalize for our own benefit. So please unmute and share one at a time, whatever takeaways you feel free, you derive.
yeah, we can do this quickly, so please do not hesitate, because we also have a closing kirtan and a few announcements. So please feel free, as Prabhuji said, but let us do it a little bit rapidly, because we have really overextended our time, but that's fine with me, as long as it's good with everybody else. So,
And I apologize, Prabhu,
no,
Vaishnava Das
you don't have to.
Prabhu, Prabhu,
Just saying,
for a little extended, but
devotees
it's
sometimes are reserved. They don't want to go ahead and express themselves. So that's why I kind of encourage them to come forward
thank you.
and rapidly.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. There are so many takeaways we can learn, Prabhu's Mataji's. Please mention a few.
Do you have your quiz? Maybe that will them.
This time I have got my takeaways, Prabhu. So
Okay.
I haven't put up that quiz, but the takeaways, because we are concluding part 2 and we need to learn the lessons, Prabhu. And
Okay.
this is for the benefit of everyone. So if
Yeah.
devotees can internalize those takeaways, that will be better for all of us. Okay, Vaishnava Das Prabhu, at least tell me one takeaway, then I'll go back to Sachidanand Prabhu and other devotees.
I think Vaishnav Prabhu had to leave.
Okay.
So I apologize. He's not
Oh,
available.
sorry, Prabhu. I didn't know. I can't see because I'm
No,
on the
that's okay.
presentation.
That's okay.
So, Prabhu, please tell me if devotees do not want, then please tell me some few basic takeaways, Prabhu.
So basically, it is like this whole Srimad Bhagavatam, but in one sense, Parikshit Maharaj, his demeanor, which is not the normal one, getting angered, etc. So that was the stage that was set by Krishna to bring Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of everyone. Out of his repentance, so repenting is an important part. If we all make mistakes, so we should repent. And the third thing that, death is going to come to everyone of us. We are not as fortunate as Parikshit Maharaj that we will get a notice of 7 days. Srila Prabhupada always harped that it can come to us any moment. Are we ready for it? So the way how to be ready is what Parikshit Maharaj displayed with his life, and especially at the end of his life, by renouncing everything. That's one of the most important things as well. Until the last breath, we are attached. The attachment is so much with family and money and other material things. Although we have been in the movement for many years, many years, that detachment has not actually taken place. And that's one of the things, because the more we chant better, Nam Aparad number 10 tells us that with the proper chanting, we should be detached from material things. So, and that's one of the things. So that shows that how many offenses we are committing. But the example of, like you mentioned, Yadyad Acharati Shreshtaha. Whatever the great leaders do, the rest of the common people will follow. So the life of Parikshit Maharaj is exemplary, especially how to die. Parikshit Maharaj showed that by asking wonderful questions. So that was also the takeaway. The kind of questions that would benefit everyone, just not himself. That is the quality of a good Vaishnava. Always, para dukkhe dukhi, always trying to mitigate everyone's issues. And the biggest issue is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, birth, death, old age, and disease in this samsara, the repetition that happens. And that can be mitigated with hearing, Shravanam. That is one of the most important out of the 9 processes of bhakti, which Parikshit Maharaj displayed, the importance of Shravanam from the right source. Hearing from a perfect source, such as a realized soul, such as Sukadeva Goswami. So, and asking those wonderful questions, the duty of a man, especially one who is dying, the activities, what should that man do, etc. And that's how Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken. It's a form of question answers, wonderful questions, wonderful answers. And by the time, by the mercy of Sukadeva Goswami, just like Arjun mentions, Nashtamo Smriti Labda Tvat Prasadad Maya Chuta Gata Sandeha Stito Asmi Karishe Vachanam Tava. That realization was imparted by Guru. For Arjun, it was Sri Krishna. For Parikshit Maharaj, the ideal Guru was Sukadeva Goswami. So after receiving that knowledge, that self-realization, that Atma Tattva, he was not at all afraid. Let the snake bird come, Takshak come, you know, and do what it needs to do. But my mind will be absorbed at the lotus feet of Krishna. And that's exactly what he displayed. And then, of course, in order to uh, make Sukadeva Goswami, impart him the realization through Shravanam, the Acharya or Sukadeva Goswami describes all the different pastimes of the Supreme Lord, right from Matsya, Varaha, Narsimha, and all the different avatars, etc., and including the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself, taking Parikshit Maharaj on a wonderful realization journey, a science of spiritual realization, especially with all those wonderful pastimes through the Shravanam process, and bringing him to the 10th canto, which is the most beautiful part of hearing the Tava Kathamrit, the pastimes of Sri Krishna himself. And then at the end, after hearing the wonderful quality that the Sukadeva Goswami expresses, is there anything else that I can speak? You know, like trying to figure out that I hope I've spoken and given you everything that I can. The glories of Sukadeva Goswami have been, that's what we took away also, how he did not come out of his mother's womb for 12 years, even though his own father requested him. And then actually it is Krishna who came to give him that guarantee. And then he came out, and then he, you know, being the Avdut, totally detached, somebody who practiced what he preached about detachment, came to the bank of Ganga, spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, a very special mercy that was shown, and that was the purpose. And then at the end, the Takshak came, and finally, just after hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, he had already received the Samadhi status. Sukadeva Goswami had already imparted that Samadhi status by his mercy to Parikshit Maharaj. And then his body froze like a statue. Takshak came as it was predicted, because it was the prediction of a pure Brahmin. It had to happen by the will of providence. Although Kashyap Muni could have stopped him, but it was not so. And that fulfillment of the Brahmana's curse came there by Takshak coming, biting Parikshit Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj completely turning into flames due to the heavy poison that was injected in Parikshit Maharaj, and by the presence of the fumes of Takshak. And everybody in the whole world, all the three worlds saw what happened, appreciated it, and at last they lamented for such a great devotee, a Vaishnava, such a great emperor's association, bereft of their association. And finally, his son Janmajay, the first son, conducted the yajna, the Sarpa yajna, to destroy all the different serpents due to the action of Takshaka. But Indra came to his rescue, hold on to his tail, and Indra did not let him go. And then Father Janmajay Maharaj requested the Brahmanas to intensify their mantras, so that, so Indra was also being dragged along with Takshak, almost entering into the fire. But at that time, the great Brihaspati requested, please, he is the guru of all the Devi Devtas. So Janmajay Prabhu, Janmajay King, he honored the Guru's desire and stopped it, because Takshak could not die in any case, because he was immortal due to the taking of the nectar from the demigods, the Amrit. So this was a glorious presentation, Prabhu. Although, it was amazing. Maybe we could have done a third session, so that you could not have rushed through it. But I think we, in both the sessions, we did get a lot of wonderful takeaways. So based on my memory and my intelligence, whatever I could share, I'm sharing. And I thank you very much on behalf of Iskcon Niagara for this wonderful presentation. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you. You summarized the whole pastime in very brief. Plus, you nailed almost all the takeaways. What I'm going to say. So I'll just present the takeaways here, which is almost the same as what you said. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.18 says, Nastapaya Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. And that's exactly first takeaway is we should Nityam Bhagavata Seva. We should continuously read and hear about Lord Krishna and read and hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Acharyas. Maharaja Parikshit, the second takeaway is Maharaja Parikshit knew in advance of his imminent death within 7 days. So he got a chance to prepare himself for the final moments. However, we don't know what is going to happen to us in the next moment. Therefore, we should read Srimad Bhagavatam and the transcendental pastime of the Supreme Lord every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. The next one is shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra is required for our liberation. So if someone says, you know what, I'll study myself and I don't need anybody to guide me, then that wouldn't be successful. One must take the shelter of Guru, who would impart the knowledge, or Sadhu, sages. You know, Parikshit Maharaj approached the sages first, or Shastra, the Sri Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are all Shastras we must take shelter of. For what? For our liberation. And the next takeaway I have taken up is Maharaja Parikshit was a blessed soul before his birth, as Lord Krishna himself protected him while in the womb of his mother, Uttara. With the mercy of Krishna, he got the opportunity of associating with Sukadeva Goswami and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam until he got liberation. Therefore, this is for us, all of us to learn. It is very important for us to have association of pure devotees for our own purification, because it is only association of pure devotees which will make our path clear and which will make us advance spiritually faster. Otherwise, the journey can be longer. We should try not to take any action or judge someone when we are agitated for any reason. And one more lesson for every one of us to take is, do not take action when you are agitated. And there can be millions of reasons why we get agitated. Something we expect and that expectation is not met, we get agitated. At that time, we lose our temper and then we start judging people. And we should refrain from taking any action or refrain from judging someone just because the situation provoked us and we got agitated. And that is what Parikshit Maharaj could have done, but because it was the will of the providence, he did what he did in this pastime. But a lesson for all of us is not to take action when we are agitated. Think back and pause for a while. Another lesson is forgiveness is the greatest virtue. Maharaja Parikshit could have invoked the mercy of the Lord to save him, because he was a true devotee. He was a great king, but he did not do so because he was a pure devotee. A pure devotee never asks the Lord for any undue favor. Instead, he accepted the curse as a will of the providence and proceeded to the banks of river Ganges, renouncing everything. And that's a lesson for us. So when problems come to us, the next and the last lesson is, when problems come to us, we must take them as mercy of the Lord, as Maharaja Parikshit did. But we should be distressed by the problems of others, like that of a bull and a cow. The bull couldn't see the cow's sadness, so bull and a cow. And we should try to find a root solution to that problem. This is called paradukha dukhi. So we should be getting miserable when we see someone in misery. We should show compassion and we should try to find the solution, the root of the solution to that problem, and the root solution to that problem. And that is the greatest lesson for us. We should all be paradukha dukhi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you once again, Sachidanand Prabhu, Vaishnavadas Prabhu, and the management of Iskcon Scarborough for giving me this opportunity to serve you and your congregation. I have tried to speak few words from Srimad Bhagavatam, although totally not qualified. So maybe I might have committed some mistakes. If there are any mistakes or shortfalls, it's purely due to my shallow understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. But if there is anything which you have taken as a lesson worth implementing in our life, then the credit for that would go to my Guru Maharaj and our Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pitambara Prabhu. Thank you again for the wonderful presentation. A lot of things to take home and absorb to make our spiritual life successful. So just a couple of quick announcements. This Monday, coming Monday, the 26th, is the appearance of Radha Kund. Bolo Radha Kund ki Jai. Also, it is Sri Balram Rasayatra Krishna Vasanta Ras, and the appearance of Shyamananda Prabhu and Vamshi Vadan Thakur. So, these are the Vaishnava Tithis for the next week until we meet again next Saturday. So at this point, I would like to invite His Grace Venkat Prabhu and Snigdha Radhika Devi Dasi Mataji to conclude with a closing kirtan. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Venkat Prabhu, you'll need to unmute again because I had to mute everyone. 1 second. Go ahead.
Can you hear, Prabhu?
Yes, I can hear you. Hari Bol.
Hare. Vishnu Padaya